Catching up with Sarah and Ginny, fueled by laughter and insights aplenty. Curiosity, connection, and learning that sticks. Real talk, real lives with practical tips. Welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny. Come on in.
Good morning, Karl, or as I should call you, Action Hero Teacher, because when I emailed you, I was like, I need to know more about this. So tell me more about Karl Pupé and tell me about Action Hero Teacher.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, Ginny. As I always say to people, I'm not the Action Hero Teacher. I know that's the name of my book, but you are the Action Hero Teacher. But as I say to people, of all the nicknames I've had in my life, including my school days, Action Hero Teacher is not too bad. So I'll keep it. So yes, I will tell you and the lovely audience who I am. So my name is Karl Pupé FRSA. I am a teacher, a lecturer, a consultant, and I am the author of two books, The Action Hero Teacher, Classroom Management Made Simple, and The Action Hero Teacher 2, Teachers of the Lost Class. And it's all about, or what I specialize in, is dealing with children that are quite vulnerable, that have got SEN, special educational needs, and SEMH, which are social, emotional, and mental health needs. So these are kids that haven't had the best start in life. And my job was, at the time, so I was NEETs coordinator. So that's a person that's not in employment, education, or training. And these were the guys that got kicked out of school and excluded. And my job was to get them in some form of education, employment, or training. I took those skills that I learned and then I put it all in a book to help teachers deal with classroom management, which I prefer to call classroom leadership, especially in times like this, because we are leaders with all the shenanigans in the world. So that's exactly what happened. And I've been doing that for 6 years now. So I go up and down the country talking to different schools and institutions on how to engage our young people better.
So I'm thinking, if that was 6 years, did some of this happen kind of during COVID?
Yes. So I've got a funny story about that. So, you know, one day, this was in 2018, when there were less grays in the beard. I'm getting on now. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I thought to myself, oh, why don't I write a book? Because even my wife was like, you're really good at this. Why don't you write a book? And I said, yeah, how do you write a book? And then anyway, fast forward, I wrote the book. I released the book in 2019. This was 11th of March, 2019, thinking I was going to be J.K. Rowling, thinking that I was going to have, Ferraris and be in the Bahamas sipping Chianti and, being on the beach. And I sold about 30 copies or 35 copies. Most of those was to my mum's church group, possibly, and some people I wrangled. But what ended up happening, COVID in a weird way, of course, it was a completely terrible and horrible time. Let me not make light of it. It was obviously terrible for everybody involved. But what ended up happening was, because everybody was at home, I think we all just lived online, all of us. And then that's how people discovered who I was. And then it just kind of grew from there, to be honest. And as we know, it feels like we never came out of COVID. Although the lockdowns and stuff are there, all the Pandora's box of social problems are still with us today, unfortunately. So it's just made the work, or it's just extended my work, or it's amplified my work, for want of a better word. So yeah, that's what happened.
And I think from a technology point of view, COVID was really interesting in that, I know from my point of view, it made me have to go online and made me a little bit braver about going online. And I think we now have a lot more virtual meetings, hybrid meetings, and all of that. And I think it would be really interesting if we hadn't had that time when we all had to stay in our homes, if we would be in the same situation as we are now, having conversations. I had a conversation yesterday with a colleague in Dubai, which I just think, did it make things happen from a technological point of view faster? Would they have happened anyway? I think that is an interesting side conversation, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't remember. I go to a lot of these kind of conferences, like EdTech conferences and stuff like that. And I can't remember who said it. It was one of these homework companies. I don't know. It wasn't Satchel, but you know what I mean, where the kids
Yeah.
upload their homework and whatnot, what have you. And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, prior to 2019, he was banging on the doors of most schools, DFE, Departments for Education, saying, look, I've got this great product. And people are like, yeah, we don't need it. Yeah, whatnot, what have you. And he goes, when COVID hit and lockdown came, he goes, it was like an avalanche of emails saying, you mentioned the product, right? Can we have the product? And he said, I'll never forget this quote. He said, COVID did for EdTech. But basically what COVID did was, I'm really destroying the quote now, but he said something along the lines of 20 years of progress was made in 1 year because of COVID. He goes, I do not think without COVID, we'll be doing half the stuff. Video calling, I remember Skype, that was seen as really, really, it was, it wasn't as great, Skype conversations, the latency and everything, but quickly we had to adapt as a society and say, this is the new way of working. So I
Yeah.
think, but what it's also done is it's unleashed the Pandora's box, I believe, in terms of behavior, which links into my work, because people became more reliant on social media. And I think what ended up happening with that is all the social ills that we're seeing, especially when it comes to anxiety and depression, especially in our young people, have been exacerbated because as our worlds became online. And now if you're not online, especially for a young person, it's almost like you don't exist. Whereas well, I don't want to talk about you, Ginny, because you're very young, but back in my day, the worst thing someone could say to me is you're not playing out. I remember that. My mum's like, you're grounded, you're staying at home. If I say that to a kid now, they're like, quids in. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They're like, I want to stay at home. I'm like, going out is the new punishment. It's like, you have to leave, that's
Yeah.
the new punishment. So it's just, yeah, it's the paradigm shifted.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could have hours of conversation about this. I just think
Mm.
it's fascinating, and I do wonder. I mean, we know in Australia that they are changing the laws about when children are allowed on social media.
Mm.
I wonder where we're going with this, Carl. I do wonder
Mm.
if there is going to be a huge change, a huge conscious shift. I've been reading The Anxious Generation.
Jonathan Haidt, yeah.
Yeah. And now there's another one out called and it's got a more positive title. Is it The Amazing Generation? His next book has come out. I think we just need to watch this space because
Yeah.
I think people are seeing the impact. I think they're owning it more. And I think it sounds a bit, but I think society is actually coming together a little bit more, from the point of view of children, parents, countries. So I think it's one for us to park now, but
Mm.
I think it will be very interesting what happens in the next 5 years,
Absolutely.
where laws sit and such like.
Mm.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Brilliant. Yeah. As you
yeah,
said, that could be a whole podcast within itself. I'm
yeah,
sure that'll be a
yeah,
part.
yeah. So now you tell me about what has been a wow moment for you, Carl. It can be a recent wow moment. It can be from a while ago. It might be something that is just, always there, and you go, gosh, that was a pivotal moment for me.
I mean, I think the wow moment for me, and it's always been, I've had many careers in my lifetime, but I always say to myself, teaching is the most impactful because you're seeing real change. I mean, for me, it's always been when I see former students. And the thing is, what makes me laugh is like when you saw them in school, they're, tiny. And it's like within 5, 6 years, they've grown with beards and, all sorts. And you're looking at them like, who's this? Like, sir, do you remember me? I'm like, no, I don't. It's like, oh, it's John. John, little John. Yeah. And he's like 6'6". And it's just like crazy. I mean, one wow moment, and I think I said this one when we saw each other before, was there was a particular boy, I want to change his name, let's call him Zach. And this particular boy, Zach, was an absolute pain in the back end. He was, he had various things going on for him, but he was a rebel without a cause, James Dean, so to
Oh,
speak. So he was the type of, he just was truanting, he just wouldn't engage, and he was constantly in isolation. And the thing I saw in this young man was that he's very entrepreneurial. He was organizing a lot of illicit, illegal gambling. But it takes a lot of effort to be able to gather the people, gather the punters. He was organizing like UFC fights, money ups, cards. But it takes brains. I'm not saying that what he did was right, but it takes brains and it takes some gusto to be able to organize these big events. Uh, so when he was in isolation, I used to see the young man and I used to say to him, like, look, you can do better. Take that positive trait, you're quite entrepreneurial, and apply it to something else. Because he was just like, what's the point of school? So he left more or less scraping through his GCSEs. And then I remember I was in a big shopping mall. Shopping mall? Is that what we say? We don't say shopping mall. Center, shopping
Um,
center.
well, shopping centre.
There
Yeah.
you go. English, forget Americanisms, mall, center. So I was in a big shopping center one day and I'll never forget this huge hulk of a man, put his arm on my shoulder or tap me on the shoulder and he's like, don't you remember me? And he had a mane like a lion. And I was thinking, am I getting into a fight here? Is this going to be a bit of a fight situation? I was looking at the exits and thinking, how fast can I run? And it was this young man, Zach. And cut a long story short, he was with his little brother. He said to me that basically he owns barbershops and he's starting a franchise and he's franchising it out. And he said something I'll never forget. He said something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing now, but he said something along the lines of, he goes, sir, you know what? Can I say a massive thank you to you? And I said, why? And he said, because you condemned my behavior. You always told me I was wrong, but you did not condemn me. And he
Oh,
said, you were part of the inspiration. Why? Because you said, to use my skills in a positive way rather than illicit, illegal way. And now I'm doing something with my life. And it goes to show that this kid wasn't the brightest. He wasn't, sorry, let me not say that. Let me use different words. He wasn't academically gifted, okay? Because there's different giftings. Would you say Muhammad Ali is stupid? Although he, didn't get good grades, he's a living legend. There's different types. Howard Gardner, for everybody back home, there's different types of intelligences. He wasn't, the brightest in English or maths or science, but he had something up here. And he found that gifting and he used that gifting. And it reminded me that we're so quick to write off certain kids and say, oh, because this kid's not getting, I don't know, a level 3 or 2 in primary or getting 9s or whatnot in GCSE's, life is over, or her life or their life is over. But it's about, I always remember that the word education comes from the Latin educare, which means to bring out, to draw out. If we think about Socrates, that's his view, Socratic view of education. It was not about putting in, it was about drawing out. It was about drawing out what their talents are. And that's what's always kind of guided me. What is within the child that we can help bring out of them rather than stuffing and cramming facts and figures into them? So that was my wow moment.
and I love that. It's about what is within them. And I didn't know that about the word educate. And, it was what could be perceived to be a small interaction you had with that child, but stayed with them. And I think we must never, ever underestimate the impact our words have on individuals and how it stays with them. I think that is just, it's so powerful, isn't it? And the fact that that individual needed to come up to you, Karl, felt that they saw you and they needed to come up and they needed to thank you. I think that shows a lot, doesn't it, as well? Because they could have not come up to you, but they were like, oh, there's sir, I need him. I need him to be proud of me in what I've achieved. I mean, it's huge, isn't it? The whole thing is huge, and it makes me laugh when you say we see a child and then we have to go, okay, now let me just think back. What would they have looked like 10 years ago or such like? Or I find if I'm in a local supermarket and then a parent comes up and goes, "Hi, Mrs. Bootman. Hi." And I'm like, okay, let me just go my file of facts. You have 2 children, boy and a girl. They would, and I kind of test myself and I go, yes, how are Alex and Jessica? And they go, they're fine, not realizing it has taken me, but
One of it.
that's important, isn't
I've,
it? That's important.
I've spoken to, and the thing is once you've, we're both veterans because I'm approaching almost 20 years in education. Once you've been that, so, long in the tooth, it becomes harder and harder. I've spoken to kids on the street. It's like, Mr. Pupé, how you doing? And I'm just having long conversations with them. And I walk away, I'm with my wife, and she's like, who's that? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't. But you don't want to disappoint them because, oh, Mr. Pupé, you're one of the best teachers. And you don't want to say, who are you again? Because is just, we teach so many kids over the time. So it becomes trickier and trickier to do.
Yeah, I was out with my family, and someone came up to me and said, you taught my son. Do you mind me coming up, telling you how he's doing? I was like, tell me how they're getting on, because in primary we set these children off to the big wide world, and then to actually find out where they are at the age of late 20s or such is
30s,
fascinating to see the trajectory, the journey they've been on. And I thought it was really sweet that the parents said, do you mind if I tell you how my son is getting on? I was like, no, I love finding out how children have got on, because we are a small part of their journey, and to see where they have gone is just, well, I think we are very blessed to find out where they've gone to. So that is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful wow moment. So if we move on to a little bit of a music
absolutely.
question, if Send were a song, Karl, what would it be and why?
Oh, you know the answer to this. It will be simply Eye of the Tiger. Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, I believe. Yes, Survivor. My heart always goes out to, especially when you're dealing with children that have had a really difficult upbringing. My heart always goes out to them because they don't realize, maybe many years later, and I was one of those. I was one of those kids. It takes, so to reference myself, it takes many years and possibly therapy too, and great mentors to realize that, wow, sheesh, you had a tough start in life. The thing with education is that we all say to the kids, you're all on the same start line. We almost see it like a race, like a marathon, and everybody's at the same start and everybody's running along, but we're not in reality. Some people are not even in the stadium. Some people are in another country to get to that start line. So I always like the song by Survivor, because the Eye of the Tiger, rising up back on the streets, did my time, took my chances. That's the only vocals you're gonna get, guys. I'm not singing anymore. I'm not a great singer, but it's about having that will and having that fire. And I remember saying to some of my kids, especially when we had like the small nurture groups, and they were saying, what area I'm from, and I'm not going to make it in life. And I'll say that you've got an advantage that other people do not have. You've got these disadvantages you think are disadvantages. You've got grit. You've got resilience, right? There's some people, you say that the rich kid is going to private school. When a bad thing happens to him, he falls over or she falls over. You've been hit by some of the hardest things that adults can't even take, but you're still here. So you have got a superpower, whether you realize it or not. So it's building that fire and desire in that young person to say that, you know what, no matter what. And I love Rocky. I think Rocky's such a motivational film that you can go the distance. You may not be the smartest, you may not be the fastest, but it's that iron chin. It's that eye of the tiger to keep pounding the pavement. The thrill of the fight, to say, no matter how bad it gets, I'm still going to be in it. I'm still going to be in the ring, whether I win, lose, or draw. And it's building that fire. So for me, it's always Eye of the Tiger.
Love it. Love it. And I think it's acknowledging what you have got in your toolkit. I love this idea of we all have a toolkit. And actually, like you're saying about resilience, about what have we got that we can use to get through some inverted commas fights. So I absolutely love that, Karl. Absolutely love it. So we are at our final question. I can't believe we're at the final question. So tell me, please, about a favorite book of yours. It can be a book you've read recently. It can be a book that you read as a youngster that you read again, or that kind of that kind of is kind of in your heart, but just a book that is a favourite book of yours, please?
Oh, you know, I'm going to be difficult. There's two. There's going to be two. I'm sorry. I have
Well,
to be difficult. I have to be that difficult student. You know, that student that's always, you know, making his own rules. That was just always me. Okay. My first book is a book called The Alchemist by a chap called Paulo Coelho. Okay, and The
well,
Alchemist is a fictional story. It's almost like a fairy tale. It's about a young man who's called he's like a shepherd, I think in Adrilasia, which would be Spain now, and
well,
it's like a mystical tale, and it's about him going to find some treasure, and he meets somebody called an alchemist, and the alchemist was it's mythical. It was a person who could turn materials like lead into gold, and he takes him on this journey. But what I love about the book is beautifully written. It's the prose is so poetic, but it reminds us to go and search for our dreams. I'm absolutely ruining the book. No, I'm not ruining, but I'm not giving it the praise it deserves. So I'm giving it the praise it deserves, but I'm not describing it in the best way. But it always stayed with me because it talks about the importance of following one's dreams and the magic that can come from following one's dreams. And I know that from personal experience. So that's one that stays with me. So that's a non-fiction version, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. My second favorite book is a book called The Slight Edge by a guy called Joel Olson. I know everybody knows Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's a fantastic book, but this was the precursor to Atomic Habits. And The Slight Edge is a book, it's a self-development book, and it talks about how your everyday habits, although they're really tiny, can compound into massive results for good or ill. So it's a great reminder of talking about the philosophy of success in life. And it's not only just monetary success, we're talking about in relationships. So if, for example, when I speak to my wife, I say, you know, something a bit disparaging, like, you know, your hair's not looking good today, blah, blah, blah. In the moment, my wife might be a bit miffed in the moment, but over 5 or 10 years, that ends up in a divorce because she's like, you're always saying bad things. But if I
oh,
compliment her and say how wonderful you look, that will bring me something else. And it's the small things we do every day. They're easy to do and easy not to do. You know, if I eat a burger every day and chips, you know, 5, 10 years down the line, I'm going to be looking like the Michelin man out of Ghostbusters. So, you know, well, if I eat my
yeah.
salads, you get the idea. So it's a great book. Those are my two favorites.
Well, I've written them down, so I will be looking them up. And, you know, this idea of the small things make a big difference, and they can have a negative or a positive impact. And I think in education, in the classroom, you know, it's about every interaction. And there is research, isn't there, about if we have positive people near us, we become more positive. If we have negative people, then our mindset can become more negative. So they are amazing books. And our whole conversation today, I think, has been about how the little things make such a huge difference, don't they? And about us being conscious of that, whoever we're near, isn't it? You know, be it our family, in school, be it children, be it the staff and the parents. I always come back to parents, Carl, because you know the parents know their children best, and actually, you know, to have that positive relationship. But it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for this chat, and as always, I'm coming away knowing so much more and about what the word educate means. You know,
I
so
love
you
it.
know
That's
that's
the only Latin you're getting out of me, Ginny. I
well.
didn't do well in
Look,
Latin.
I've had Latin, I've had a bit of a song, and I think we need to have more conversations, Carl, because I feel we've tipped into lots of huge topics that we could really talk a lot more about. So thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you.
And I am a lone wolf today, so I have to, on behalf of Sarah and I, say it's always a pleasure and never a chore. Thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you very much for having me, Ginny.
Thanks for joining us this time on Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.